hello and welcome to another mini-ep, or as I like to call them, a moosh-boosh of Show Me Something Wrong. And today is a very, very special episode because not only am I talking with co-host, director Dave Jackson of Cat Sick Blues fame, but also a very special guest, the Cat Man himself, Mr. Matthew C. Vaughan. Welcome to the show.
Welcome back, Matt.
Thank you for having me, Guy and Dave. What a privilege. What a privilege to meet the Moosh Boosh boys.
That's what they call us.
So, Matt, you already endured Houseboat Horror with us, but we thought we'd keep you around for this little mini episode.
Oh, no problem at all. It was super fun.
So, with Cat Sick Blues getting a beautiful release in Japan, I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to shoot you guys some questions about all things Cat Sick related and some not. So, bear with me. I've got a few. Some very general questions, some not, okay? But, I mean, I've heard a lot about this film and production from Dave previously, but I don't think I've actually heard about how you two first met and came together. So what is the story of how you two met, first and foremost?
I don't know how far you want to go back, but during the sort of mid-2000s, we were studying at the same university. And we were in the same building. I was studying professional screenwriting. This is at RMIT. Dave, I can't remember what your course was called, but you were like a floor above me.
Yeah, it was called screen production, I think, was the name of it, or something like that. Yeah, screen brackets film and TV probably doesn't exist anymore. It was the same course that James Wan and Lee Winnell did.
Were they in your class?
They were not in my class, no.
In my class, not only was my now wife in it, Sean Grant, the writer of like Snowtown Murders,
really?
And with a heap of other stuff. Also Nick Verso as well. But so we were a bunch of people who were doing that course. Then, sorry, that was a very, very long backstory. Anyway, we were in the same building. We had a mutual friend he introduced us at is that right, Dave?
I have a very strong memory of the first time meeting you because I used to live in this absolutely fucked share house, which you can see in Cat Sick Blues. It's the Francis house where he hangs himself at the end. But I lived there for like years and years. And I remember our mutual friend, he was a housemate of mine, and he brought over Matt, and Matt's now wife, Greta, came over, and I remember meeting you for the first time. We had this back room. So we had our house, and then there was like another room just outside, like a separate kind of building almost. And it was just like the bong room, basically. So I remember meeting you in that room for the first time.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, it was a party, right?
No, I think you came over, like, the housemate
Troy
had brought you guys over and introduced you. Yeah, Troy.
I became a fan of Dave's work independently. Through Troy, I found Dave's some YouTube videos that he did. There was one particular video that stood out in mind. It was I can't remember the exact title, but I think it had Richard Datsun in it, and he was it was like Simpleton pisses his pants.
It was Thomas Kinsman in that.
Oh, okay. Was that what it was called? Simpleton pisses his pants?
I think so.
I've not seen this one. I need to have a look at Simpleton Pisses His Pants.
Yeah, so I watched a few things that Dave did. One particular one that stood out was this Doritos had like one of those competitions where like you make an ad for Doritos and the winner gets to go on TV or whatever. The ad gets to go on TV and gets the prizes. And Dave entered it, but he entered it probably with the most disturbing video that the selectees would probably have seen.
They would have had to have watched it. Have I shown that to you guys?
I've not seen it, but I'm definitely going to ask you about that later.
It was me and Andrew who wrote Cat Sick Blues. We made this horrible Doritos ad where it's us smoking bongs on the couch and then just having this like kind of panic attack and eating Doritos, but we're like vomiting them up and then re-eating them. It's like shot. We deliberately shot it as like chaotically as possible. And then the tagline at the end was Doritos tastes good second time round or something like that. But then do you remember the sequel as well, Matt? Or I did a sequel where it was just me, and it's me getting dumped by my girlfriend at the start and having this like mental breakdown and just like binge, like just shoving all these like Doritos into my mouth. And then I like run into the bathroom and I'm just shitting and vomiting at the same time. Yeah. And again, like eating the vomit. The idea that like those people running that contest would have had to have watched those ads. It's the only reason we made them.
I'm surprised you're not on the Doritos blacklist by now.
Yeah.
I think,
brilliant.
Yeah, that was the one, the sequel one. I had seen the first one, but I saw the second one first. And I thought, that's someone I want to work with.
Brilliant.
Yeah, we ended up becoming friends through making comedy together. So we had another mutual friend, Michael DeRobio, had put together basically like a group of filmmakers and people interested in comedy who would all make their own like individual like little mini TV shows. And yeah, I did a show with my friend Pierre called Fever Dreams. Matt, what was your first show? Was it Peep Jeep?
Yeah, the Peep Jeep.
Peep Jeep, yeah. So that was part of kind of like under the umbrella of this thing called Lost Dog TV with these like multiple shows. And the first time I think you were ever in anything I made, Matt, was in Fever Dreams, right? And you were playing, you were kind of, strangely enough, you were dressed as a cat in it.
Yeah, I was.
It's like one of my favorite sketches. Yeah, it's like these ghost hunters. You've probably seen it as well, Guy. These ghost hunters going into this haunted house, and they're like really fucking terrified, looking for ghosts. And then they hear something and open up a door, and it's just Matt dressed as a cat, like vomiting up a fur ball. And they're just really disappointed, like, oh, it's just a fucking cat. So I think that was the first time we made something together.
I think, yeah, it was either that or the episode. It was like a Japanese guide to Australia.
Oh, yeah. Maybe that was the first time where you and my friend Brock, because we've done it. We did an episode, and it's as if it's like a Japanese documentary about Australia.
Yeah, I definitely remember that one.
Yeah, they're talking about the people's like hobbies in Australia, and one of them is fighting, and it's just Matt and my friend Brock shirtless, like in these white fronts that we'd stained yellow. Just like fighting each other.
For me, it was like wearing children's underwear. Like it was like the underwear was really tiny and really tight around my junk and my ass. I mean, that's fine. But Dave like smeared me and Jock with mud and blood, and we were wrestling. It was just like a quick 2 shots. I pick up like Brock and like lift him over my head and then we wrestle. And yeah, I think that was, and I was so excited to be part of Fever Dreams. I've got to tell you, I loved it so much. And then everything that we made after that, either Dave would appear in it or help us out. Like, you know, if we're making more comedy, we made a sketch show for ABC, and Dave directed all 3 episodes. And appeared in a couple as well. And then Dave would put me in stuff that he knew. I mean, he has plenty of weird friends to put in things. Plenty of weird guys. I just ended up being one of the weird guys that and there's all these faces in Cat Sick Blues that appear in Dave's stuff and some of our stuff as well. So yeah, it's yeah, we became fast friends.
Right. Oh, so Cat Sick was not the first time you guys came together. You had previous engagement before that. That's interesting. Which leads me on to Cat Sick was originally shot as a short film. Now, Dave, question for you is, what was the process of adapting that short into a feature? And for Matt, were you initially involved in this short? Were you the Catman in that short? Or did you not come into the project until when it became a feature?
Yeah, I was in the short. Dave, you can probably explain this better, but the short was originally like the opening to the film. In the script, it was like the original opening.
Yeah, it was kind of a complicated process because I had written that script like ages before. It takes a long time to make stuff, right? So I'd written the script, I don't know what year it was, but around the time that we made the short film. But Andrew and I had written a full feature-length script, and the idea was like this short film would be the first 10 minutes of the film, like the pre-title sequence. And yeah, so it was part of that feature script. And then we shot it, and a lot of things went wrong on that set. It was a very, very difficult shoot. It didn't really come out the way we'd hoped. And I think because there was so much time after that shot, because then we had to raise the money for the feature film, that we just the film kind of changed, like the script changed, and what we wanted to do with the film changed, and even the cameras that we were shooting on had changed as well. So ultimately we decided it couldn't really be the opening of the film. It didn't really fit anymore. So we wrote a new opening scene for the movie. So yeah, it was meant to be part of the film, but then it just ultimately changed over time.
Right. And I heard a story that, Matt, you were not originally cast as the Catman. Were you, did you have a different role, like on set, or as a different character before it ultimately went to you? And then for Dave, what was the reason in ultimately casting Matt?
I came on board as a producer, and because I've got a giant ego, I said, I'm not going to do this unless I'm in it. No, I did. That's not what happened. I wanted to produce a feature film. I wanted to be involved, and I do I really enjoy working with Dave, and I think we do come from different places, but we do cover the same ground in some of the stuff that we make. We both were making like comedic nightmares, basically, these shorts or web series, but I really liked that. Dave is obviously, he's a better technician than I am, better filmmaker, and I might be, might have better writing skills. I don't know, but it's like we have different skills, and I just wanted to be a part of like a feature film, and I wanted to be a part of Dave's feature film, and Dave sent me a first draft or a second draft of the Cat Sick Blues feature script, and as a producer, I gave him, and it wasn't like set in stone yet that we're gonna, that I was going to be a producer or whatever that form of the script was going to get filmed. But anyway, I read the script. I gave him notes. There was very, very detailed notes. I was working in a bookstore at that time. Dave came in, and we went out for lunch, and we were talking about the notes. And I said to him, Dave was talking about this another actor who you would approach to be in it, and Dave wasn't. He was unsure about if it was the right person, or the actor didn't really. But to me, it was like he wasn't on the same wavelength of Dave.
That guy as well, like when he read the script, he was like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Like he thought it was going to be a kind of hard-boiled true crime kind of style serial killer sort of thing. And then I guess he probably read the words cat dildo and was like, what the fuck is this? So yeah, he was kind of, yeah, as you say, on a different wavelength.
Yeah. And, it's completely fine. But yes, I said to Dave, you need someone like a weird guy in a role, like someone who's like kind of off, like kind of, and I said, someone like me, right? And I didn't mean it as a suggestion. I was just like someone who has a weird presence, someone who's got can look like he has an odd body on screen, like I'm quite tall and Dave's silly face just lit up in that moment. And he was just like, I don't know what he said, but he's like, that's a really good idea,
Yeah, it was quite a risk to take probably for both of us. Cause, at this point, Matt had acted in stuff that I'd made, but it was mostly like shorter comedy sort of thing. So to take on the lead role in a feature film, and the film's like a funny film, but it's not really the kind of comedy sort of stuff we were doing before. It was it was quite a risk for both of us to do that, I think. For
sure.
Yeah.
I think along the way my acting and my confidence in performing got a lot better as the shoot went on. I was able to lock into the character quicker. There was a bit of a problem with me getting to sort of all the physical stuff that's like, all the violent stuff. And it would take like a take or two longer than Dave wanted. But by the time we, were halfway through, like it wasn't my fault that the scenes were being held up any longer.
Yeah.
Matt, did you have any hesitation in accepting this role, like being portrayed as a essentially cat man rapist with a giant dildo like this? I think that you're just like, yeah, I'll do that.
With the material, it is pretty disturbing. It goes to very disturbing places, the film, and that was all in the script. And sometimes, and it was there were some bits that were worse in the script as well. So yeah, I knew going in that this was a risky endeavor. Like I had to, and Dave would see this on set. Like I would, when it was time to wear the cat dildo, I was getting. It wasn't my favorite stuff to film, and it was because I had to feel what Ted the Catman was feeling, and I wasn't ready to, I had to go into some dark places, right? And so it's like naturally that I would have, I'd be hesitant to, for those moments. But, no, for sure. There was I did hesitate, with the content's pretty dark, and I do work in I have written for kids TV, animation and stuff, and there was okay, is this if this gets seen by the wrong people, is this going to impact my career, and is it going to impact Dave's career? Because I was also producing as well, and I want to protect for myself, but I also want to protect my best mates as well. So yeah, that's that was all consideration, and I may have been a bit deluded when I signed up, thinking that I could do it, or I was, but I got better and better as it went along.
You also, one thing I always find quite funny, probably the most fucked up thing in the film was Matt's suggestion.
Oh yeah.
So in the original script, there was no, I don't know if you remember the hostel scene, and it ends with a death by the dildo. That was actually not in the script. I can't remember what it was originally, but I remember, Matt, if you don't mind me telling this story.
Yeah, go for it.
You're like, I think we should add this death in, because you've got this dildo. It doesn't make any sense that nothing is done with it in the film. So that got added in kind of close to the last moment, right before.
Yeah, we're getting props made, and because that's why you came over, and we're like, that was one of the days we were going over to the prop guy, the main prop guy, Dita
Barry. Yeah, Dita Barry.
Dita Barry, who lived near me, and I mean, I suggested that because it's just if we're going to go with this premise, we should commit to commit to it. You know, I just think that although it's pretty horrible, and the makeup looks amazing. I watched Cat Sick Blues today for the first time in maybe 6 years, 5 years. Yeah. But yeah, I noticed that. I mean, that was really uncomfortable to watch, but I love how it's shot. I love how it's edited. I love the effects, and that's the hostel dorm scene. It's
The hostel scene is one that a lot of people talk about. It's almost like the most famous or most memorable scene of the movie. Whenever there's like a review written, or more often than not, people bring up the amazing hostel scene. But I wanted to ask, what was like both of yours favorite scenes to film, or most like enjoyable moment to film, and also like the moment where you thought, fuck this, I'm exhausted, I'm hating this right now?
I think for me, by far the best scene to film was actually the hostel scene, because it was the last day of filming, and I remember just everything worked on that day. Like previously we'd had issues with effects not working. Yeah, my main memory of that day was like doing the big neck slit, which I really wanted to do. That was like the main effect that I wanted to do, and I wanted it to be really over the top and ridiculous, like huge. It was really hard to achieve that effect. It was actually supposed to be in a different part of the film, but it didn't work out. And when we did that scene, and the first time we did it, it didn't work. It was just like a little dribble, and I'm like, I guess we're gonna have to fucking do something else for this scene again. And then the second time, it just exploded. And there's behind the scenes footage where you could see me watching it and just the delight on my face. And I think because it was the last day and like all the main crew was there, it was just like a very fun final day. So for me, that was the most memorable kind of nice day that we had. How about for you, Matt? What was your favorite thing to shoot?
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember clearly. I remember a lot of the shoot, but yeah, that's the shooting the dorm scene was not only there was four stunts, four effects.
It's crazy to think of. Yeah,
that's a lot to do in one shoot, isn't it?
And we didn't have time. We didn't have the budget to do it again.
No, yeah, it was just all of them, only right? That. Yeah,
this is what I was saying before. Is that like as the process of making this film, and for myself I was getting better and better at locking into the character and being more confident in my skills and stuff. And I just remember I'm not going to stuff this up. I'm going to get this, like, I wanted, because if we couldn't do it again, you know, we couldn't do it again. So I didn't want a reason for that not to work. That the reason would be me. I didn't want that. So I was just like, I was really focused that day, and and pulled it off. I think two of my favorite things were, there was one day where we were filming and it was just you, Dave, and Daniel Cohen, who's a really good friend of ours, and he was the main cinematographer of the whole film. And we were filming, it was just the cat man was running with a cat carrier of body parts. Yeah. And we were filming in like a sewer drain in West Brunswick. And that was really fun because it was just three of us. And it was like, even though it was really hard, like because the mask, it was hard to see out of when you were moving. Like there was only a tiny slit, so it was like hard to see. So I had to time out my movements, and I fell over in that dirty drain water, sewage water once, and I tripped on another time. Like it was pretty hazardous, wasn't it?
And I used your trip in the film as well.
Yeah, it was hazardous, and I couldn't see as I'm running, so I had to like you know, like sort of plan it out, step it out, and just like go for it. If I fell over, I was just going to keep running and keep doing it and keep, you know, the last moment is like chucking the cat canister in the sewer drain. And it was early morning, maybe like,
Yeah, it was really early.
As the sun was rising. And I really love that sort of like cutting, you know, just that essential, you know, there was three of us and we made that scene and it looks awesome on screen. And there was more of a sequence, but the other shoot that I loved was when we were shooting at the asylum, ex-asylum in Ararat. And I loved like the atmosphere of this asylum and like, you know, it was, and all the weird extras you got from the town who still send us messages asking when are they going to be the next Johnny Depp.
Yeah,
they're all like really into it. They're really fun people, and it was like strange, like, you know, to film in like this place that obviously a lot of pain had existed in this place, and you know, and just like the makeup on Xian, the actress who plays the female lead, and you know, just all the like weird stuff, you know, seeing, you know, Dave getting spat on with black goo, you know, the puppet Patrick, you know, all that stuff. I love that sequence, and I did, you know, that was we went away for the weekend and we did it, and it was, you know, I really enjoyed that stuff.
For me,
Dave, I think
I was just going to say, you asked about the worst day.
Oh yeah,
as well. For me, by far, I remember nearly having a panic attack when we filmed not the hostel, but like the kind of club bit before the hostel, still kind of the hostel scene, because kind of like it's kind of the opposite experience of what Matt was talking about with only, you know, three of us shooting that scene. This was like a scene with loads of extras. And it was really, even though it's a short scene, like really complicated. There were effects in that scene that we ended up cutting out of the film, which is crazy. Like in the original cut, the Catman rips out the DJ's balls, like rips his balls out. But then when I cut it, I'm like, it's just too silly. But like shooting that, we only had an insanely short amount of time, and they were like, if you don't get it done by here, you're done. Like it's getting shut down. So I remember just like the whole way through the shoot, like my heart just like fucking racing as we were shooting that. And if you look at any photos of me behind the scenes on that day, like my eyes are just like bulging with terror. That was the worst. I hated that day so much. It was, I nearly had a full-blown panic attack that day.
I can only imagine how horrible it must be to direct an entire room full of people with that many extras.
Yeah, and these were just guys that we just put an ad out for, and it was like, well, if they show up, they show up kind of thing. And they were, it was intense. Yeah.
That was it. I think we had 4 hours, if I remember.
Maybe even less, yeah. It was 2 or 3 hours, yeah. It was really short. And we had so much lighting to set up for it as well. It was, that was rough.
I mean, there were a lot of stressful days just because there were long days and sort of, I guess, the material that we were filming as well. I think for me, one of the hardest moments was, can I spoil the end of the movie?
Yeah.
No one's going to watch this before they watch the movie, right? What a stupid thing to do. Just watching behind the scenes. So when Ted dies, and I had to sit there for about 2 or 3 hours with my leg bent under my other leg and had fallen asleep like about 15 minutes into that position. And it was at the very end of those shooting days, which were all the scenes that were in Ted's home. And they were very long because we had a lot to film there, and we had a lot of moving parts and a lot of like effects and lots of we were a lot of crew as well but on the last day we had all these cop extras, and a lot of them were like friends and you know, and my wife Greta and my brother and and other really good friends, and it was really emotional. Like for me, I remember like after I filmed the scene where I basically I have a fit and die or die from a wound. I had a shower, and I remember just bursting into tears in the shower. I was just overwhelmed from like the whole week. And that was probably the most emotional that I got. Yeah.
That was a long week.
But it was awesome. Oh, it was great fun. I loved we'd work till 2, 3 a.m. and have to be on set at 7.
Yeah.
You didn't sleep that whole week.
Yeah, that was pretty fucked. Yeah.
Speaking of like emotions and your friends and family also being on the set. I mean, I know Dave, like you filmed in your grandma's house. Your parents are in the film, so I know you were able to get a lot of personal details in there that are kind of now, immortalized in this movie. But I wanted to ask Matt if you were also able to like sneak any personal momentums or touches in there.
A lot of young Ted is played by my nephew, who's now a fully grown man, and so his dad was played by my brother.
So your brother is your dad in the film.
Yeah.
Back to the Future.
What else? Oh, my brother's daughter, one of his daughters was in it, and then another nephew is in a cut scene, which is sort of like a backstory of the Catman when he was younger, finding this is amazing. This was the first scene that we filmed apart from the short film that we didn't use for the feature, but this was the first scene was the trunk. Was it the trunk man?
Yeah,
it was like.
It's not in the end film, yeah. It's cut out of the film.
And our mate John Powell played this guy who had like 8 nipples, and he bursts out the trunk, and he looks amazing.
You said 8 nipples?
Yeah.
8, yeah. He's like a cat man. He's got like 8 nipples. It's like a weird kind of flashback dream sequence. We shot it on Super 8 as well.
Oh wow!
It's like probably the most expensive sequence to shoot, and we cut it out of the film.
But I mean, that's on one of the releases.
Yeah, I think it's on most of the releases, that deleted scene. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome.
I've not seen that scene yet, so I'll have to see that one. Dave, I wanted to ask you about the picture of Patrick.
The painting?
Yeah, the painting. Very intense close-up cat with his tongue out. Because I feel that's such a kind of iconic image of the film. I think it also got used as like a slipcase for a recent release. And I was wondering if there are any like interesting stories behind this painting.
Yeah, that was so the cat that is the adult Patrick. That was my very good friend Pierre, his cat Dell, and Matt and I went over to Pierre's house and just took there's like so many photos of Matt with this cat. But do you remember, like, this is kind of a tangent, but we took all the photos, but we forgot to put the Patrick collar on. Do you remember that? And we're like, fuck, like, because it's like it's something that you see throughout the film, this collar.
Yeah.
So then we had to like Photoshop the collar into all the photos that we took. That was ridiculous. But yeah, that shot, I really wanted to have like this really ridiculous kind of close up of like this painted portrait of this cat. So yeah, we were taking photos of Dell, and she was like, that cat is a long time ago, so she's passed away now, but that cat was like very like constantly bug-eyed, like his eyes were always like massive. So I just had all these photos of this cat like close up with all these like ridiculous facial expressions. But yeah, that was the one. I'm like, yeah, that photo will go for that. And then I sent it to an artist that did like I can't remember what it was, like a digital, but like oil, mimicking an oil painting. And then we got it printed on like this special like canvas that made it look more like a oil painting. And now that painting lives at Matt Revere's house, who is the composer of the film. It's just in his toilet.
Awesome. So, now the film, it has not yet been released in Japan, but there is actually 2 releases coming up.
Yeah, so September 8th. I guess by the time this comes out, it's already out
Oh, yeah.
in Japan.
Is it September 8th is the release? Awesome.
Yeah, so it's got a kind of a standard Blu-ray and DVD release that, you know, is available on Amazon and all that sort of stuff, but it also got a very special release from our friend Eggy, who we've talked about on the podcast before, from Video Violence Releasing, who put out Guy's film as well. And that's like a mega release. It's like 2 discs, big booklet. It's got more extras than I've ever put on anything before. It's even got the Doritos ads, actually.
Yes, I was going to ask about those. Awesome.
And it's got, I even tracked down like my old high school films and put some of that stuff on it. So it's got a lot of stuff. But unfortunately, it's already sold out.
Ah.
What?
Yeah, so they did a pre-order and it sold, I think it was limited to 300 copies, and Eggy told me it like sold, I think it's in the first few hours it sold like 200 and something, and then it was sold out in a few days. So that's gone.
Wow.
You unfortunately can't get it. I'm only going to have 1 copy of it myself as well, because Eggy's like, no, we can't give away any more. So yeah, that's going to be a rare one, but that'll definitely be, I would say, the best release of it.
Nice.
Just because there's so much on it. So much. And Eggy had to make subtitles for everything.
All your old student
like
films?
all my old short films, like all this like stuff like that I've never put on any releases before. He made Japanese subtitles for all of them. So yeah, pretty crazy.
We have this super awesome special box set from Eggy Video Violence Releasing, and then the standard, which is being released by another company.
Yeah.
This standard one that doesn't have the short films and the Doritos and that kind of stuff.
No, it doesn't have that stuff. It's got some short films on the disc, but it doesn't have that extra thing. It's actually do you know what the extra disc is called, Guy? Because it's called Something Wrong. Yeah. Something Wrong. The World of Dave Jackson or something like that.
Oh, that's good.
So I did a little podcast tie-in on it as well.
Nice. Got to keep pushing that podcast, get them followers.
Yeah.
Not that anyone in Japan is listening to it, but
no.
Speaking of which, though, so we went down to Tokyo together a couple of years back for the Cat Sick Blues screening. That was the first time it got screened in Japan, right?
Yeah. That was quite an experience, because I didn't. This is before we had met Eggy and any of these people that, you know, we've come to know quite well now. So when I went down for that screening, it was part of like an all-night horror kind of thing, sandwiched between all these like German splatter films.
There's loads of like Olaf Ittenbar and like violent shit and stuff.
It was so weird. So I was kind of worried. Cat Sick Blues, it's got gore in it, but I don't know, it's not really like a gore film in the same way those German films are. So it's a little bit of a weird lineup, but yeah, like I was expecting it to be quite a small thing, but it was packed out. Like it was fully basically like sold out, you know, cinema. It's like 200 people there or something like that. And we did a Q&A before it, which was really awkward because it was COVID time. So there was like these screens between us all, and I just couldn't hear a thing that anyone was saying to me. But that was actually the first time I had watched Cat Sick Blues since, you know, we finished it essentially like years and years and years ago. And I'd never watched it again. So that was the first time I'd seen it in years, and it was it was actually a really good experience. It's the only time I've ever enjoyed watching the film with an audience, because I really liked the way that people reacted to it. And it was kind of like interesting to watch because there was so much space between it. It was kind of weird. It was sort of, I knew the film so well, but it was also kind of like watching it for the first time. And there was a lot of things where I'm like, this is so fucking crazy. Like, I can't believe I made this fucking ridiculous film. Yeah. So yeah, it was quite an interesting experience. And after watching it, it kind of changed the way the new film that I've been writing. I realized like it wasn't enough. It wasn't me enough, if that makes sense. Whereas like Cat Sick Blues, like, oh, this is definitely my film. But yeah, my new film, I feel like I had to like go back and rewrite it to make it more like something that only I could make. So that was a really good experience watching that film in Japan.
It was a great experience for me as well, just like being there with you, because it was met with an extremely positive audience reaction. We kind of like ducked out as it was finishing, and then as soon as like the credits started rolling, you just heard this roar of clapping and cheering, and then we kind of ducked back in, and then since then, you know, it's been kind of like a hot film in Japan. It's like it's had this second life, if you will. You had labels fighting over the rights of it, and I was thinking, so you've always had like a love for Japan and Japanese cinema. You're now living in Japan, and your film resonates well with Japanese people. So I was wondering, like, do you think there's a connection there? Do you think like your influence from the love of Japanese cinema has like bled into your own filmmaking, which then appeals to the Japanese audience?
It's hard to know, really, but yeah, like I always say when I get asked about it, just I know that the film Gozu was a big influence on the Miike film, because in terms of like the humor of the film, I wanted it to be something that's like funny and scary and upsetting at the same time, not like switching between the two, so not like a typical horror comedy. So yeah, that was definitely a big influence. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to know. I don't know how much my love of Japanese films have bled into it. But I did find, kind of not on Cat Sick Blues, but when I was rewatching Fever Dreams for this new release, I was like looking at some shots and I'm like, fuck, it's so obvious that I was watching a lot of Tsukamoto Shinya films at that time, because like the kind of shots in it, I'm like, wow, I didn't even like consciously, you know, I wasn't meaning to do this like a Tetsuo looking shot, but it is. Right. So it's hard to know like when what you're influenced by, because it's not always like a direct thing. It just naturally leaks into the films that you make without really realizing, I think. Yeah, so I don't know, maybe, but yeah, it is interesting how positive the reception is in Japan compared to other places.
I was gonna say, so yeah, hearing or being there myself to witness the really positive reaction from Japan, and then hearing stories about when you screened it, even in your own country, where it wasn't in some places so well received. How do you feel about that?
I like the one I remember the most, and Matt, you were there for it, that like the screening in Sydney, Australia. Yeah. Do you remember how awkward that was?
Yeah, but our first screening, well, the cast and crew screening was the first one, and that, I mean, of course, that's going to go really well because you've got the cast and crew there. But the second screening was at Monster Fest. 2017, was it, Dave?
2016, I think, yeah.
2016. And that like was a great screening. You know, we had people like, you know, like a lot of people coming up to us and, you know, being freaked out by it and being you know, feeling dirty and wanting a shower and but really liking it and really enjoying it. And the Sydney screening, there was probably less people. But we had more walkouts there than in percentage-wise, we had more walkouts in Sydney. We might have had more walkouts in Melbourne, but we didn't notice because we were in a big cinema.
That's the main thing I remember, that Sydney one. Just like not that many people there, and a lot of people, walking out. And then the Q&A, like at the Melbourne screening, was really fun and like upbeat. And then the Sydney one was just really fucking bleak, just really grim. And who knows, that could just be a difference between Melbourne and Sydney, but it felt like very grim, and I was like, oh, I do not enjoy this at all. And yeah, then the worst reaction it had was in the UK. So the one screening it had in the UK, like that was when I started getting like really angry messages from people like berating me for making it. And apparently a lot of walkouts, and people like, some guy who did an interview with me was telling me like people were like writing graffiti about the film and like the toilets and stuff. Like, I'm like, what the fuck? So I don't know why the UK hated it so much in particular.
In England, the UK, it's like, I mean, any sort of film that depicts violence towards women is pretty much hated, and more often than not banned, if not just heavily cut. So I can see why some British people would react negatively. But then I guess that goes on to my next thing, because some people just, cast this aside and label it as a misogynistic, exploitive, like trash movie. But then you have the other side of the audience who really relate to Ted's character, and they can relate to his like grievance through pet loss. And I've actually seen a fan come up to you, Dave, and weep in your arms, saying like how much she related to this character's pet loss,
which is kind of disturbing. Like I appreciate that, and like it is part of the film, but Ted's character is a monster. Like he's a terrible person. But I think that's part of what makes Matt's performance so good, is that like even though he's like this horrendous guy with a dildo on and doing all sorts of horrible shit, there's some, and I feel like if we had have gone with someone else, it just would not have worked. Like there's a innocence to Matt, like a kind of it's hard to, you can't really hate Matt because he's such a he is just he exudes like a natural, I don't know, a sensitivity or a kindness that even though you're watching these like horrible things, you can't help but feel sympathy for him in the end, which makes it, I think, a very uncomfortable film for a lot of people, because they probably feel quite guilty for feeling sympathy for this guy. But I think that comes from Matt, because if you imagine, like, if you had just like I don't know, some like terrifying actor in that role, it wouldn't work. You'd just be like, oh, he's just a evil guy. But like having that like weird sympathy for him makes it very like
it's conflicting for the audience, isn't it? Yeah.
That was a very nice thing to say, Dave. Thank you. I don't know whether it's like maybe I didn't do a more convincing job, but
no.
Ted is a monster. It's basically a portrait of an incel terrorist.
Yeah,
and I guess that's what the confusion. It's fair enough to feel what you want. It's not a film for everyone. I wouldn't show it to a lot of people. I wouldn't, but there's a lot of people I would show it to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just like, so it's fair. I'm not gonna judge people for the feelings that they have, because it's their legitimate feelings. But I think where I don't want to talk for Dave, but it's like he was setting out to make a film about this monster, this misogynist, this awful, abuser, and it wasn't celebrating that character, but it was like he wanted to paint like a full person as well, not just like the awful stuff, but also like what made this person that person, and like the real relatability of pet loss, pet grief, that kind of stuff. So I guess that's going to what you're talking about, Dave.
Yeah, I do remember being like quite shocked by that, especially after the UK, just being like, I remember just being very confused by it. Of like, I get it. Like, as Matt said, like people can react however they feel, but like it was quite confronting for me, because it's like getting messages from people calling me like all sorts of things. I'm just like, what? Like, but it's a film about that. But anyway, that was quite shocking for me.
I think if you're receiving hate mail in any way, it's like, it shows you're pushing buttons, which is always a good thing to do to a certain degree. Get a reaction out of people.
Yeah, this type of film, this type of sub genre, you don't want to just have mid responses, like, you know, you want to, yeah, you want like the super fans, which, you know, Catholic Blues has, or as Dave calls them, bloobers.
Is that what you call them?
I forgot about that.
Bloopers.
I just forgot that we did that for a while.
We came up with so much nonsense.
Yeah.
Like all the like behind the scenes videos would always talk about minions.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever shown that to you, Guy, but like every time we do an interview about the film or do a film introduction, we'd always slip in a reference to the film Minions being like a very big influence on Catholic Blues.
Brilliant. No, I've not seen that. But is it on the Japanese Blu-ray? Is there some...
What, Minions?
No, your interviews, like some sort of video, like, or...
No, I don't think there's any Minions-related gags on the Blu-ray, unfortunately.
All right, before we finish this episode, you'll have to slip in a little Minion thing somewhere.
Yeah. A little Easter egg.
A little Easter egg, so listeners, listen out.
We already
for the
have.
Minions.
Matt's already slipped it in. You have to go back and find it. Got to listen to the episode a few more times.
So it's been quite a while since the film was completed, right? When was the film finished?
2016 is when the final cut of it was released.
Right. And we're still having new releases coming out. How do you think it's changed and evolved over the years, and how it's been received?
Yeah, I think it's just been like this weird thing of there's always like a new wave of like reaction to it, which always surprises me. So yeah, we had the initial release in Australia, then America, and then kind of went quiet for a while, didn't really hear too much. And then in Italy, it screened in Italy, and after that I just started getting messages all the time from Italians talking about the film. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? I thought it was some prank at first, that all these like Italian people were like sending me messages. And then, yeah, it screened at a few more Italian festivals, then came out in Italy, and it just seemed to have a really positive reaction there. Yeah, that was like the sort of next wave of it. Then again, it went quiet for a bit. And then it went a bit crazy on TikTok a few years back, because like some popular TikTok user did like a video about how it was like the most disturbing film she'd ever seen, and that had like millions of views. So then suddenly we were just like had this massive influx of interest in it again, which led to the German release. Then it went quiet again, then the Japanese thing happened. So it's weird how like long its lifespan has been. I think usually like a low budget horror film just sort of comes out, few people see it, then it's just, you know, goes quiet. But yeah, Catholic Blues just keeps coming back.
Yeah, 9 lives.
Yeah. So with that, you've kind of been able to get releases in many different regions, and I think this is just me speaking for you, Dave. Probably like a own personal goal is getting a Japanese release as well, which is coming out this week. But is there anything that with this film that you have not been able to do yet that you would like to do?
A sequel.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be like another filmmaker have a go at it? Like,
Man,
just take it a completely different direction.
I always thought it would be really funny to see like a big budget, like American remake of it that just like fucks it up massively. But yeah, we have often talked about like joke ideas for a sequels. I still really love the idea. I think it was your idea, Matt, of like that meta sequel where it's like after the film has finished and your life is like ruined and you're getting forced to wear the dildo at all these like different like screening events and stuff. I do really like that. But yeah, no, I don't actually want to make a sequel though. But yeah, in terms of things that I'd still like to achieve, I mean, there has been a suggestion of potentially having a small cinema release in Japan, which would just be like, that'd be the dream for me. Like that would just be fucking amazing to have, like a cinema run at Japan in Japan. So that would be amazing if that happens. But it works in a weird way in Japan, as you know, Guy. Like it's coming out on Blu-ray and DVD, but there's still a possibility of having a cinema release after that.
Yeah.
Because Japan just works in such bizarre ways when it comes to film releases. So
I guess to answer your question, Guy, like one thing that's semi-related to that is that for me, I'd be one of the best things about working on creative projects is when you get to make stuff with like good friends. And in my case, like I get to write with my wife, every other day. So like that feeling, I want to keep having that feeling. And it's not something I have had for a while since, like I occasionally would make shorter stuff for, since Cat Sick Blues, but, and of course my, writing scripts with my wife, but it's just like that is something I want to keep feeling, and it's something that I encourage listeners to do, is to find their group, find their their mates who make stuff and make stuff with them, because it's a beautiful thing to share.
Yeah, definitely.
And Dave, I mean, you're still very much involved in this film and creating new content for new releases and everything. And but I was wondering, Matt, how often this film gets brought up in your life, or has it ever come up? Someone says like, "You're that guy who did this," or like you said at the beginning, if there were to be some sort of influence or impact on your other jobs from this.
You know what? There's been some really positive stuff, like, and really like the thing with the horror community, which is unlike any other genre of filmmaking, is that it's a very engaged community, and I've gotten a lot of requests from like just like people send me messages. Same with Dave. Like we'll get messages saying, "Oh, do you have any props?" Or they would send me stuff to sign. It's like, I'm just a regular dude, right? Just sitting in my kitchen doing copywriting work for some organization. I'm not like I'm no one. I'm a nobody, right? But it's like someone will send me a message and say, "Hey, I really love Cat Sick Blues and I'm really into masks. Would you be up to sign a mask if I sent it to you?" And that's like not a one-off. I've had that, not just masks, but, other stuff where, like people ask for things like, or can you sign the DVD? Like when it first released on in Australia by Monster Pictures, I would get requests like, "Hey, can you sign my DVD?" And then someone would send me a gift with it.
Oh, lovely.
I'm just like, I'm not, I just buy the movie. That's a big enough appreciation. It's all good. But yeah, that aspect has been really positive, and just like I have run into a couple people like, "Oh, you're in that film," and someone was really scared. But yeah, not. Dave's probably got more of the other side of the reaction than I have, but it's just that Dave works so hard to, he's very responsive to people about it, and he's always, he's done a really good job in marketing it for free, to the right audience.
And Dave, you mentioned briefly about your new film. I thought it would be good thing to end this episode on, talking about your new film, seeing what you got planned for the future.
Oh man, I don't want to say anything about it.
All right, let's finish there then.
But all I'll say, I want to make something. I've wanted to make something for ages, but it'll be something that's shot in Japan, and yeah, like a feature length horror thing. Matt's read the script.
Yeah, I've read a couple drafts, and there's in some ways it's a bit similar to Cat Sick Blues, but in a lot of ways it's like really different. I mean, similar as in like the
dildos. Yeah,
it's just wall-to-wall dildos. No, they're sort of like the horror, gore and violence and stuff that like that kind of stuff is along with similar tone to Cat Sick Blues, but it's a really fun script, and I hope it gets made. And I always ask Dave, what's the status on it? And I want to come over and I want to be in it.
Yeah, get you to be in it.
Yeah.
Just need a few buckets of money, and then we'll be ready to go.
All right. Well, any final words from both of you?
Thank you for having me on this episode. It was nice to talk about the film. I haven't, as I said, it was the first time I'd watched it in 5 or 6 years. It was it was good to watch it with distance, not as attached to every moment as I was, you know. And I noticed a lot of things that I hadn't noticed before. So it was good to have the opportunity to watch it again. It made me get quite emotional, even though I'm in it, and even though like I know exactly every beat. I know. Like,
did you start crying when you died?
Yeah, I just started choking up. Like, I think it was also because my nephew's on the screen and my brother's on the screen, you know, and it's just like, and the music, and it's like, what am I doing? I know how this goes. That's me on screen.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like, watching it again, I got quite emotional because for me it's more like the stuff that's shot in my grandma's house, which is Ted's house, and you know she was alive when we filmed that. She passed away, and that house doesn't even exist anymore. That got pulled down. So yeah, for me it's like that's quite emotional to see that, and it is, you know, that's the house that my mum grew up in, my auntie and my uncle grew up in that house. So it's also it's a film, but it's also this nice like document as well of a certain time. So yeah, I think I've got a lot of those kind of memories attached to it as well, which is very nice. Yeah. But yeah, thanks for coming on, Matt.
Oh, thanks for having me.
We did much less cum jokes than usual.
Maybe I'm making this, like, classing up the podcast for you.
Come on, mate, bar up.
Bar up.
Well, yeah, Japanese release of Cat Sick Blues is coming out in a few days, and I know there's a ton of very loyal collectors that are literally purchasing every single edition of this film that comes out. So that is definitely one to look out for. The box set with all the Dorito goodness, unfortunately, has sold out, but who knows, it might come online secondhand at some point. But regardless, the new one, the standard that is also coming out, I think that has some pretty awesome artwork, does it not, Dave?
I think we're finally using a poster taken by our friend Lucas Haynes that I've always wanted to have as the cover. I think that'll be the cover, but I'm not 100% sure.
Right.
Yeah, you have to see.
Either way, for all those bloopers out there, there's another new awesome release that adds to your Cat Sick Blues collection. And with that, yeah, thank you all for listening. Matt, thank you very much for coming on the show once again.
Anytime.
And Dave, I'll see you in a little bit for a couple of drinks. Find us on X.
Find us on X.
On X.
Oh, we love X. SMSW podcast.
Big Elon heads here.
Yeah, we're a bunch of Elon heads.
Elon convention.
And you can also send us an email at showmesomethingwrong@gmail.com. See you next time.
See ya.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Minions.